What's up, Wildcat Nation? It's Jesse with Wildcat Fanalytics, recording a short preview on Purdue, Arizona for my own sake of sanity as a fan. We're hoping Mike will drop something too before the game. I wanted to cover just my thoughts on each team's path to winning and each team's path to losing, rather than be predictive. As for me, getting into that predictive space makes it a little more stressful as a fan, and I get really attached to the way things going as I see them, and it often gets really frustrating. If you would have asked me 6 weeks ago about this game, I, like a lot of Arizona fans, had high hopes for Arizona's chances because I figured Purdue would be in the top five and Arizona would be coming in with probably a loss or two, a hard fought loss, some humility, some learning, and probably a little like less weight to the statement that the win could represent for Purdue after this long string of marquee games that they've played. So it's quite a flip of the script now that Arizona comes in undefeated, ranked number one, to to Indianapolis, to the state of Indiana, where, frankly, basketball is part of the identity. Goes beyond just like we talk about culture of player, team, coach. It's like the culture of the state. So a lot of reverence for the depth of meaning and weight that this game carries for Purdue in the state of Indiana. Um, I think that has some sort of impact. So I'm going to start with what can I imagine is Purdue's path to victory on Saturday against Arizona? And I think that's part of it, is essentially a home atmosphere. It might not be their home arena, but you better believe it's going to be loud. And I believe someone said it's pretty much sold out, which means there are going to be a lot of Purdue fans going crazy. The weight of playing the number one team is always such an easy motivational factor for young kids. But the most compelling thing about these teams, these programs, two of the best coaches out there, two of the best regular season teams in the last 3 years, just kind of tracking when Tommy's taken over, but sure, Painter before then even. And two teams really seeking to like change the story about their postseason lack of success, really trying to fight to earn credibility. So there's a lot invested for both. And I think one thing that helps Purdue here is that they're probably, at least in like a psychological way, they're a little bit underdog, but they're at home. And most of the advanced metrics probably favor Purdue slightly, but it's incredibly even. So there's always an advantage of being at home and being perceived as an underdog. I think this is their chance to. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous because if you look at what this Purdue team's accomplished, they've won their last 32 straight non-conference games, 32 in a row since 2021. This season alone, they're on a stretch where they've beaten Xavier, and then in Maui, they beat Gonzaga, Tennessee, and Marquette. All athletic, defensive, versatile, um, really difficult to play against teams, and they beat them all. And then, of course, they just beat Alabama after Alabama made 19 threes. They lost at Northwestern, as people do coming back from Maui. So they're not infallible, obviously. But it seems like Painter, like Lloyd, has really figured out a lot about how to be successful in the non-con. So you have to give them. I expect that this is not a game where they're going to beat themselves. You have to expect premium focus from them, effort and execution. We can't just sit here and expect them to go 6 for 27 from three. Maybe Edie goes for 30 and we can win by six. That's not the way this game plays out, most likely, if they're to win. What else do I have? Um, I think, like as I've been saying with Mike, the best defense for Arizona is to score and sort of disrupt that rhythm. Arizona's at its best when the defensive rebounding is as excellent as it's been, and they can force you into tough twos. If you miss shots against them frequently enough, I'm going to say our because I'm an Arizona guy. Our ability to convert missed shots into efficient offense. I don't have the numbers, but I don't think anybody needs the numbers. You just watch this team play. I'm not sure anybody can beat us in a game where your offense is not efficient enough to slow us down in that way. Purdue might be the perfect team built to do that. They have the most prolific 2-point scoring machine maybe in the history of the NCAA. He's averaging, I think Mike was saying 1.9 points per shot, which is absurd. His free throw rate is 91%, also absurd. That means almost 1-to-1 free throw attempt per field goal attempts, and he shoots at a high rate. So, and he gets fouled. He's a high volume guy. Obviously, they want to get him the ball every time. So Purdue's path to winning, I think, involves establishing that successful shot making early. If you don't come out shooting the ball well against Arizona, you can get buried in a hurry. And that should apply some pressure, but I think Purdue is so well coached and their offense is so re like replicable, for lack of a better word. Those close in 2-point shots from a 7'4" guy are about as consistent as you can get. And they have 7 guys that shoot 35% or better from three. They shoot 40% as a team. So they have a lot, they have a lot to say about offense. And if they create a rhythm early, then, then it's about can we keep up with their offensive efficiency rather than creating momentum through missed shots where we start getting up and down. That's where we really start to tip teams. And I don't think that's going to happen with these folks if, well, I'm getting predictive. I think Purdue is going to be harder to get into that type of a game. My sleeper for Purdue is Mason Gillis. He's a 6'6" power forward. Seems to me a little bit like their version of Keyshawn Johnson. Maybe not as prolific, but a little better shooter. He's got a 67% effective field goal percentage. He plays about 18 minutes a game. He doesn't get a ton of shots, but he's the kind of guy that if he gets free, he could knock down 2 or 3. He also has the second highest offensive rebound putback rate on the team. He doesn't have a ton of them again, but this is going to be a high possession execution game where there's going to be a lot of those opportunities. So look out for Mason Gillis, which will come into my next point, which sort of dovetails into Arizona's path to losing. So this is more like if we beat ourselves, what does it look like? I think the most compelling thing that I have to share about that is Arizona's in a unique position in that it might be one of the only teams, and maybe the only other one I can think of might be UConn, where they have the personnel that they could actually start to think they might be able to stop Zach Edey. I think this is a problematic situation to be in. I think there's something liberating about knowing what your capabilities are so that you don't get over fixated. I think one of the traps Arizona could fall into in this game is to over fixate on the idea that they can stop Edey or if Keshad, Umar, Pella, certainly Krivas, though we can afford him being in foul trouble more than the other guys. If they over fixate on Edey and they lose sense of the connectedness, the defensive coverage, of the defensive coverages that they've been executing supremely well, I think that's one of the ways that they go down. I mean, I don't think we have a chance if we get in foul trouble and we start leaving shooters open and scrambling and trying to make it a battle like of Arizona versus Zach Edey. I think if our egos are into like we're the ones who are going to stop the dominant player, then I think we're in a lot of trouble. I think, and I'll get to our path to winning around that. So yeah, early foul trouble. This is, you know, everyone's talking about this, praying that the officials just let these guys play, call something if it's egregious, but please, please, can we pray to the gods of officiating and maybe the admin of a Division One officiating? Can we please let the players decide this game? Nothing would be a bigger bummer than if neither team gets to be at its best and we get to see it play out. And I could see Keshad getting a little overzealous, making a stupid foul, Balo the same thing, that we have a little bit more cushion with I feel solid with Krivas's defense, or Larson. You know, Pella's really aggressive. So either of those guys gets two fouls, let's say by the 8 minute mark of the first half or before it, I think that tips the game in a problematic way. We'd have a lot to overcome in terms of their efficiency and how hamstrung we'd be in the personnel department of defending. And then I think the other way Arizona you sort of more loses the game than Purdue wins it is poor shot selection. And I think mainly our decision making and shot selection has been outstanding. The only question mark is Caleb and Kylan. Are they going to get excited and start pulling up um, from 26 feet? I think one of the ways that we actually can win this game is really working and executing our half court offense because that's where we're going to get these guys on the run. That's where we take advantage of our athleticism. The easiest shot to guard is the pull up three from 26 feet, unless we make a few of them, you know, but that hasn't been the case. So I think poor shot selection. I don't want to be too critical because I think we've mostly done a great job. And but you know, it's clear that Love and Boswell are working on these things and trying to implement them in games, especially Kylan. Um, and so can they ground themselves and stick to the greater plan, which is to run them to death in our offense? We should get good shots against them. Our advantage lies in the versatility and athleticism at basically every position, except for maybe Jones. But we should get good shots. I don't think we should take them off the hook. So that transitions me into Arizona's path to winning. Coming back to I've got notes here because otherwise I'll just go on tangents. Gosh, what connectedness these guys have been showing in team coverage. I think we're past an era where we can easily just match guys up and say, this guy's going to guard this guy. There are those man-to-man concepts. However, Tommy's defense is so much more about coverages and being connected on defense so that it's coordinated in much the same way an offense would. And now that everything is run through ball screen offense, and certainly Purdue will do a ton of it as well, it's changed the way we look at man-to-man defense. So the Arizona's path to winning starts with an outstanding tactical game plan, which we're all fascinated to see how Tommy approaches this. Because it's a really N of one. Purdue's an N of one when you talk about Edie and how they approach offense and how efficient they are. So I think I'll leave the tactics to the more basketball knowledgeable. But my psychology around it is we've got to kind of stick to what makes our defense great, which is connected coverage, not getting too distracted by any one person, adapting as the game goes. We have a lot of versatility. We have a lot of length. I think we'll see a lot of Pella on Braden Smith. The thing about Purdue's backcourt is it's not that big. I think they're 6'0", 6'1", 6'4", if you talk about Smith, Lawyer, and Jones. And we have a little bit of, we have that athletic length when we talk about Love and Larson, especially. We should be able to bother their guards if we get the coverage right and we're playing really connected, hard-nosed defense. We have to make their guards uncomfortable. We have to make it as hard as possible to get open looks and to get the ball to Edie. I think that's doesn't take a ton of basketball knowledge to understand. So stay out of early foul trouble. Yeah, again, we're just fingers crossed that same thing. I don't want to see Zach Edey on the bench. I want to beat them at their best. If they beat us, I want them to beat us at our best. So, we have to stay out of early foul trouble. We have to stay calm. We have to stay poised. It's going to be a lit crowd. It's going to be huge atmosphere. Hopefully our guys are built for it. They did it in Cameron. They've done it under duress. So we'll see. We have to own the defensive glass. Again, I think one of my concerns about getting too distracted by stopping Edie is that we lose sight of these other guys, and they do have some decent rebounding ability themselves, and they've got those three forwards. They're sort of like deep where we're not, which is the power forward. They're not. None of those guys is equal to Keyshawn one-on-one, but they've got some numbers there, and they can attack, and they can foul, and they can be aggressive. So we've got to stick to our defensive rebounding because the other thing is they don't miss a lot of shots. So where you can really wear Edie down and work him is put a body into him when somebody else has a shot up. We've got to own every one of those because that's what turns the tempo. And then we've got to run the heck out of it. My son, my son said the other day, I think he's parroting me from the summer. He said we have to run Zach Edey into the ground. I know we'd all like to see an up and down game where Arizona is taking defensive rebounds and running people to death like we did against Wisconsin. But the path for Purdue is that they're probably going to make more shots. And so we've got to run at every opportunity and look for early post touches and just have a lot of belief and conviction in how we play, even if the game is slower in parts than we'd like. The other path to Arizona's winning, I think, is patience. Like I said, we've got to embrace the half court because I think the athleticism can shine. If we get them moving, we get them tired. They're not as athletic as we are. They're a great defensive team as well, but a lot of that is by like Edie covering things. So I think we can attack, don't settle, don't bail them out by settling for contested early jump shots. You can always get those at the end of the clock. Run two or three actions. You can always get that spot up three. Um, but really work our actions. We're gonna have to really extend ourselves into the well in terms of endurance. And I think the team that's willing to dig into the well the deepest has a chance to win the game. And then my sleeper, I don't know if it's a sleeper not to Arizona fans, but I still listen to these national guys and like nobody knows who Pelle Larsson really is. They're like he's like the fourth guy, and they're like, yeah, he's pretty good. He's ranked in the top 10 in Evan Maya. His free throw rate's 85%. His effective field goal percentage is 70, and he knows how to play. He's 22, 20, maybe he's 23 by now. If Pella can stay on the court, I don't think they have someone who can guard him because you're not going to be able to guard all three of those guys with their perimeter guys. If we're patient, if we're patient and we work our ball screen actions, those guys should be attacking the whole game. We should at least get a high foul rate, if not high quality 2-point looks that could kick out into wide open threes. We should be able to get that pretty consistently. But it's going to take work. Like we're going to have to settle. We're going to have to temper. The excitement's going to be there. So it's going to depend on Caleb and Kylan and Pella making really good decisions. KJ and Jaden off the bench. I think we have much more depth and much more athleticism in the backcourt. So depends on how we execute. And then Purdue's path to losing. I don't pretend to know enough about their team, but I imagine like if they succumb to our pressure defense, yeah, like they're gonna have a really hard time winning. I give them more credit from that than that. I think their backcourt is better than it's been, and I think will bother them a little bit. But yeah, that's one way they could lose. Yeah, if they get baited into like too many threes, or if they get baited into one-on-one play and they forget about Zach, I think that's a problem for them. Again, I think they're too well coached for that. I think they're a little more disciplined. I think Arizona's a little bit more of a wild card because of the freedom we play with and the personalities that we have. We could probably more easily go off the rails than they could, but we're also a little more talented in athletics, so we could also probably put it to them a little easier. Ultimately, I think the path to an Arizona victory is a little narrower than a path to a Purdue victory, mainly because of the psychological factors and the location and the timing of the game. Um, I will say this for Arizona fans, I feel great about our team. Fingers crossed, no matter what happens. If we lose by 30, that'll be problematic. But, if it's a close loss or a close win, I think it doesn't change the arc of our season. We're gonna have a great experience and learn something. And if this game were in March in the tournament, I feel really good about Arizona playing Purdue every time. So doesn't mean I'm confident we'd win every time, but I feel like we're built finally to be the team that you're scared of playing, and that's really exciting. So, that's about as predictive as I'll be. Those are the paths to the outcomes that I see. Um, Hope it's a really fun game. Hope the players get to decide it and bear down Arizona. Peace.